What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. Tonight, we've got a lot to talk about tonight, fellas. We've got a full barn in the building, and there's some very big Chiefs news that has happened. So we're not going to waste any more time. Kyle, first off, how you doing?
We'll see how. I have no promises about where this episode goes, boys and girls, but it should be fun. Ready to chalk some Chiefs. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts. The offseason just got exponentially more interesting, and I think there's some expectations that have probably changed now. So ready to get into those and all of the fun stuff with all of you fellas for the first time in a while. So
Yeah. Also joining us, of course, Tom, Arrowhead Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Excited because I love this time of year. I love when the dominoes fall. Very, very annoyed at people who think that Brett Veach is going to sign somebody on a third or fourth contract who's anywhere near the age of 30 in free agency. That's just a disclaimer. And I mean it's a good day for people who like the draft.
I had to clean my glasses off. Tom got spicy in the intro.
Right. It's good. Hey, it's setting the precedent. Also joining us, Randy Ellenberger. How you doing, Randy? How you doing tonight?
I am doing well. Good to see you fellas again. I
can't nothing at the moment. Goodness.
There's a lot of things going on today that makes this off season a little bit more exciting. Can't wait for free agency to kick off so we can finally get maybe a better picture of what this roster is going to look like. But big news today. I am torn about it all, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we will definitely get into it. For a quick side note, Tom, where does it stop? Right, where does the line cut? Tyreek Hill is technically the guy that's the third contract over 30. You don't want Tyreek Hill back?
If Tyreek Hill wants to come, first of all,
I'm just saying, where do we draw the line, Tom? Where do we draw the line?
Pretty slim. He suffered the same injury that Tank Dell suffered almost 2 years ago now. And Tank Dell hasn't touched a football field, and he's about 10 years younger than Tyreek.
Have you considered that Tyreek got that dog in him?
He just recently started being able to walk on his own. Like, I understand it's a fun idea and it's a nice, sentimental piece. And if he wants to come back, later in the season, if there's some injuries or whatever, and he wants to come in on a vet minimum, sure. But if you think Brett Veach is going to aggressively go out and pursue Tyreek Hill right now, then
you never know.
I'm sorry. Here's the thing, Brett Veach is smarter than that, and he doesn't want to lose his job.
Facts.
Well, also, do we know if he's had the second surgery yet?
Not yet.
He's probably good,
So that walking thing doesn't matter at all when they go in and fix the MCL that still needs to be fixed.
I think he already did the second. I think he's had all the surgeries. I think he's on the road to suiting up in the red and gold.
A couple of weeks ago, he said he still needed one more surgery. So.
I was going to say, that was like
Tyreek don't know what he's talking about, bro. Tyreek don't know what he's talking about. All right.
I would hope he knows that, at least.
Tyreek, we don't got to worry about that. Tyreek's going to be good, and he's going to be back in a red and gold uniform, as are some other people probably.
I would say another name,
Henderson,
Mike Evans. But
Mike Evans.
That's separate subject.
I know Tom hates Mike Evans.
I do. I hate anybody who's over the age of 30. They remind me of my own mortality.
Let's go.
Apparently Garrett's safe from Tom.
Sorry, guys. You're not in Tom's
MySpace list. Personally attacked by Tom over here. Yeah.
We're catching strays here. We didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, this is a good revelation that I've got out of Tom. I'll accept that.
Mike Evans would be the exception, but it would feel weird to see him in a uniform.
All right, look up more 30-plus-year-old free agents, Kyle. We need to run through the whole list.
Mike Evans.
I'll tell you that Mike Evans.
I said Mike Evans' name because I think Mike Evans is a legitimate option for them at wide receiver if they want to, and he wants to ring chase if they think they can get close this year. But that's entirely up to Mike Evans and then B, what they decide to do with spending in free agency, because he's going to still, even on a not crazy deal, he's still going to be like 16, 18, 20
What
maybe.
If we double the age and go like 30.
So the
Randy
Chiefs
Moss?
traded McDuffie today.
I heard
He
Randy
got a first
late
round pick.
30s, Von Miller maybe, or like Khalil Mack is available still. Let's
Garrett.
get. You're right. You're right, Tom. Let's stop the mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the main action of this podcast after I've distracted us for the first 5 minutes of it. Yeah, so we're here today really to actually talk
I'm
about.
going to stroke out from my blood pressure rising. So
Yeah,
if you want me here for the rest of the episode, we should probably get to the Chiefs.
I just like starting off with a little bit of chaos. You know, I like
Let's
adding a
not
little bit
kill
of
off
chaos
Tom
to
in
the
the
day.
first 10 minutes, please.
You know, before today, you know, we planned on recording today. We didn't know how much chaos would really be talking about, but
I think it's kind of our fault because we said we were like, do you want to record today or Wednesday? And we said, let's wait till Wednesday just in case there's some news. And by golly,
there's some news. So without further ado, we'll announce the Chiefs have traded cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for 4 picks, which is actually a pretty decent haul. The 29th overall pick this year, which is a first rounder, as well as a 5th and 6th round pick this year and a 3rd round pick next year. So a pretty decent haul for Trent. If you just look at the market for DBs and them having to pay him reportedly a record-setting, market-setting contract that he's expected to sign. So it was very kind of shocking news this morning, but also something I think we kind of saw coming with just a lot of the rumors that were happening. You know, the Rams general manager came out a couple days ago. He's like, yeah, we really want to trade for like an all-pro defensive player, probably cornerback. We'll give up a first-round pick for him. And it's like, well, with all the McDuffie rumors already and, the extension talks that didn't seem to progress further than last year, the writing was kind of on the wall for Trent McDuffie to get traded, but it doesn't make it any less fun. I'll tell you, we're going to sit here and talk about it for the next 30, 40 minutes and break down all of our thoughts on it. First and foremost, for me, I feel like a lot of gratefulness for Trent McDuffie. He was an absolute stud for us for 4 years. I mean, just 4 years of absolute baller play, coming in immediately as a rookie and contributing to that Super Bowl 57 squad next year in Super Bowl 58, making really, really game-changing plays in that game and the whole postseason, really. Just a phenomenal player, phenomenal dude on and off the field, a veteran presence in the locker room he turned out to be after only a couple years, a true leader in the locker room for those DBs and whatnot. Just such a fun player to watch. So it's very bittersweet because, this is probably a necessary evil that the Chiefs had to do. Very similar to the Tyreek Hill trade a couple years ago, where you're really restocking the cabinet, if you will, for picks and freeing up some potential cap space and all that stuff. But, the initial reaction from me just as a fan, it sucks. It definitely sucks to trade away a really, really talented player who's still very much so in the prime of his career, a blue chip guy. So, we're going to trust the process here, but the initial, after it's nice that we had at least a couple hours now, to kind of digest it. But, I'll tell you, watching those Trent McDuffie highlights right afterwards, it got me in the feels a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Kyle, I'll throw it over to you as the next guy to react.
You sure you want me to go next?
If you want to pass, hey, listen, it's your baton to pass, Kyle. If you want to therefore pass the baton to someone else, that is all.
I said I put this out when it came out. I understand it, but I don't like it. I'm not in the business of getting rid of sub 30-year-old in their prime at an elite value position players. Yes, I know what he was kind of going to want to demand. He's a multi-time Super Bowl champ. He's a multi-time All-Pro. He's Pro Bowl. Like, he's earned every bit of the money he's about to make. But again, this goes back to decisions made in past years and other things that have been done where we've kind of set up for this inevitability. If you don't want to, they could have signed him for it. It would have been a lot of money movement. You would have had to restructure some other guys. You'd have had to probably structure his contract to be more backloaded, to where those cap hits came in later at bigger numbers. It's a lot of cash. So there's that aspect, but it's frustrating because, like I said, you how many leaders you have on this defense now is down to like two, especially if they continue with where the hit list. I mean, the names that Brett Veach mentioned in his press conference at the combine or whatever it was when he said, Mike Dana's name and Jawaan Taylor's name and oh yeah, Drew Tranquil's name and two of those guys aren't here anymore, and that probably means the third one's going to be gone soon too. So now you're down to like two guys. And Trent has been, as Garrett mentioned already, like a veteran leader in that room for a group that's been traditionally one of the younger rooms that they have. And it's not getting any younger or any older. I mean, Christian Fulton, but he's still not very old. And now you've got Noel Williams as your only other, and like CRW as your only other guys under contract in that room ish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough day for that aspect, especially because that's like Brett Veach's best draft pick. It was also the highest draft pick Brett Veach has ever used up until this year when he makes this pick. And you kind of want to, make sure you pay your cornerstone guys that you draft. He's one of those guys. It's the kind of conversation we had about Chris Jones. It's part of why I wouldn't have paid Nick Bolton what Nick Bolton got paid, but we have all had that conversation 1,000 times. So, I mean, you see the steps to get here, and you're right. It is to reload the cabinet. I did say in our group chat, peek behind the curtain, it's not the same for me with the Tyreek stuff because Tyreek stuff, there's still a bunch of leaders, including the quarterback and the Hall of Fame tight end and Andy on that side of the ball when you make that move. Plus, guilty or innocent, innocent or guilty, there was off-field distractions with Tyreek. There's never been a hair out of place with anything Trent McDuffie has ever done. The kid's been phenomenal on and off, as Garrett mentioned. So it's a business. It's annoying that this is where we are because, like I said, I'm not in the business of getting rid of, 27-year-old in their prime. And if their current trajectory continues, Hall of Fame players. But it's where they found themselves. So understand it, don't like it. Glad they got what they got, though. I will say that. The return from the business side, I'm glad they got what they got. Because I didn't think it was going to be that much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who's next? Tom, take the reins, Tom.
So many thoughts. First of all,
we got time to hash them out.
I've said repeatedly that there was no way that they were going to trade Trent McDuffie for peanuts, like some people suggested. That he would only get a day 2 pick or one pick, that type of thing. And I think if that were the case, they never would have pulled the trigger on it. Understanding what this deal looks like, the Chiefs didn't have a lot of day 3 capital, and they're going to have that now. And we know that they like to move up and move around the boards, especially on day 3. They have an extra pick next year, which was awesome. Honestly, if this deal had been just the picks this year, I think most people might be like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. The 3rd round pick next year is a huge gimme, especially not to get into this too much today, but if they are wanting to make a move at the top of the 1st round, that extra 3rd round pick next year is going to be a handy thing to have because there's a pocket of teams right in front of the Chiefs who need quarterbacks, and they're not going to take a quarterback this year. They are going to take a quarterback next year. They want draft capital to be able to do that. So the Chiefs can kind of sweeten the pot with next year capital. So that is a huge thing if they choose to do it. They may not. They may not want to. As far as a player, I'm with everybody else. Trent, it was from the first play to the last play he played, and red and gold, was the ultimate professional, was everything you wanted him to be, was locked down, played inside, outside, everything you wanted him to be. Really smart player, great kid. I mean, everywhere you go, everywhere he's been, they've said the same thing. In fact, part of the reason why I think this happened as it happened is they brought in his old coach from Washington, and I'm sure that there was, hey, let me vouch for this guy, let me push for this, like it's worth it. Giving up a first round pick for a player in the NFL usually requires some pretty big conversations. Usually, your owners are involved in that. So a deal like that, you yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything negative about Trent. I think there was no way that the Chiefs could justify, with the state of their roster, paying Trent McDuffie $30 million plus a year. He's worth every penny of that. The Chiefs don't have that in their books. Now, there's a lot of conversation about Nick Bolton and George Karlaftis and those types of things. I want to challenge that a little bit, because when you really look at the structure of these deals, this was not a honestly, this kind of became an option once the Chris Jones deal was done. That's where that kind of tipped. George's deal was pretty middle of the pack for where he's at. Nick's deal, yes, is higher up there, but structure-wise wasn't really one that was going to overlap too much with this. This came down to some of those years with Chris Jones, who's going to have a big cap number, and just some of that cash flow. So, and obviously Trey Smith last year, and I pointed this out on Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it. McDuffie is good. McDuffie is not 3 starters, like that. And people want to hate on George and want to hate on Nick, and that's fine. I get it. Whatever, you can bitch and moan about it all you want, but the reality is that both those players would start on at least 3/4 of the rest of the league. And both those players have been part of championship rosters. I'm not saying that makes them as good as Trent.
Oh, froze.
Uh-oh.
Tom froze as soon as he said, as soon as he tried to justify it.
Nick Bolton tackled his internet connection.
Yeah. My internet's running as smooth as it's. Anyways, my point is, I'm not the biggest Nick Bolton fan. Carl, I know what George Karlaftis is. I get that, but you make those decisions, because it's hard to find replacement level players at those spots. The Trey Smith thing, obviously, Trey Smith is damn near the top of the list of what he does. So, I don't think I think it's a lot of times when you bring those people in, I think it feels like that you're just looking for an opportunity to dunk on those players more than you are actually being critical, and looking at the structure of this. This also means that they could, in theory, retain a guy like Jalen Watson and Leo. And we've talked about this, right? This means that you get to go at other starters. And I understand that McDuffie is good, but, similar to how the Chiefs viewed it with Tyreek, you take that money and that capital and you have to use it to restock your roster, which is the other thing I'll say about this deal is Brett Veach is betting on himself. He has got to have a home run off season. Otherwise, this is going to look real bad and could cost him his job. Or flip it around, this could be a legacy defining move for him. So it's a very, when we zoom out and look at it, it could be huge.
Yeah, we've seen it once before, Randy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have touched on a lot of great pieces, and I'm pretty much aligned with what everybody's saying. With Kyle, I understand it. I do not like it. Like when we drafted Trent, I was ecstatic because one, no one expected Trent McDuffie to be there when we picked him. He was one of my absolute favorite guys to watch in that draft class. Like the second we turned in that card and he slipped and they said Trent McDuffie, I was like, holy shit, that is a phenomenal pick. And we got 4 solid, all pro level years out of that guy. So it's gonna suck not seeing him, roaming the secondary in Arrowhead anymore or wearing the red and gold, but it's the business aspect of this, and you see it on every team every year. Some vet or somebody's got to get cut, somebody's got to get released. It's the money aspect of this billion-dollar business. So I mean, it sucks. I don't like it. I understand it, but it's done and gone. We must move on, and like you guys said too, like what we got back helps. Having an extra first now this year and a little bit of extra, picks in the day 3 and that third rounder next year. I really hope he holds on to that and he doesn't try to package to move up in the first for some reason. I don't like that move, but it gives us a lot of opportunities to potentially fill some more holes, and especially in some positions in this draft that are deep, especially in the corner, safety departments, linebackers pretty deep in this one too. We're gonna have to replace probably Tranquil soon, if not Leo. Like we need to add some bodies in that room as well. So hopefully with free agency they fill some of those holes and gives you an opportunity to pick up some kids in the draft. But also with free agency and whatnot, cutting, trading Trent, what clears roughly 15
13, 14.
14, 8, something like that, which is essentially
Sort of.
what some people are thinking, like a Kenneth Walker's gonna want. That gives
You
us.
have the offset. I mean, you have the offset of the 29th pick salary in there to include, so it's less than that. It's several million. I think it's probably around 9 by the time you're done with all the math.
Yeah. So, I mean, it gives us an opportunity to sign somebody and saves us a little bit of money to fill another hole. But it's all complete speculation on what draft day comes without us, waiting for free agency to kick off on Monday?
Yeah, pretty soon. Next week it'll be kicking off. So, the biggest thing I kind of look at when you talk about this trade and why it had to happen is like you guys mentioned, is all the holes that this team had, right? And the Chiefs are only slated to have 6 picks this year in the draft. Now we have 9 picks this year, including 4 picks in the top 75, which is really good. It's kind of because of some of the process that this had to happen. Kyle and everyone talked about some of the contracts we gave out. Nick Bolton, George Karlaftis, Trey Smith, and I think there's still a viable way that you could have got McDuffie on the books as well. Obviously they were trying to do that last season. Now it was, he was kind of the last priority, which hindsight, I don't know, I might have made him the first priority over all of them, but they wanted to sign him to a long-term deal. And I think, for both sides, it kind of made sense to play it out one more year, and Trent would only raise his value by having another really good season. But, for the Chiefs side of it, you just have too many holes, unfortunately. And that goes back to, that goes back to a lot of things, right? Like some of the draft class hits haven't been there. If we were talking about the need for edge rusher, 2023, we drafted an edge rusher in the first round. He is not even a factor in this roster anymore. The past couple drafts, there's only been, you can argue of what's a hit or not, but really you've had 2, maybe 3 hits of the past couple drafts, and not all of them have even been at premium positions. So you kind of look at around and with all the expiring contracts from that 2022 draft class coming up, and, just the deficiencies that were kind of exposed, and some of the growth that wasn't shown by some of these draft picks last year specifically, it puts you in a spot where it's like you have to really add some bodies now, and you don't really have the luxury of holding on to Trent, even though he's a phenomenal player. Like the money is less of a factor, I feel like, even more so than just the necessity for more people, and you look around some of the secondary, specifically like Jaden Hicks is a guy you draft and you hope that he would be a contributing safety, and now he's not really, maybe he's still in the cards, it's still early, but it's like, there's guys like that. Obviously you have Noel Williams you drafted last year, who seems to be pretty good, and he's going to kind of probably take over a lot of the reins at cornerback, but there's just too many other misses that you've had that you now need to fill in this year. And so, we talked about it on one of the last couple episodes where we kind of discussed why you would trade Trent, and like he was really the only guy that you had that could even get decent trade bait from him. And, he was on expiring contract, not expiring, I guess, but it was the tail end of his contract, and you kind of either pay him the $30 million or you send him off for picks. So, it makes sense. It does, but it sucks that this whole process had to accumulate with us probably losing, I mean, one of the best defensive backs in Chiefs history. Like, I don't think that's going to be understated. Like, this guy, just from the start, just such a good player. And the fact that, like I said, we have Nick Bolton on the roster still, and you have George Karlaftis under control for long term, and Trey Smith, all the things, like, not to hate on those guys necessarily, but it's like, I would put Trent over all of those guys. And if it had to have been the case, and I get the team building part of it, but hindsight 2020, I probably would have prioritized Trent a little bit higher than some of those other guys. But it is what it is. We're here now, and he's gonna do great things in LA, I think. And I think another thing I want to kind of discuss. Maybe we'll cycle back to this part of it as well, but I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts on just how the roster has forced their hand to kind of make this decision? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you said it with he's the only piece you could get a full set of, you could get big value for. I mean, again, I understand what Tom's saying when some people do it, but it's legitimate discussion, especially on this podcast and several others, about the amount of money being designated to Nick Bolton for what he provides you and what he limits development around you. You had a guy who also understood your defense, that was also a middle linebacker in college, that was also the captain of his team in college. He's the guy that's a free agent right now, that now you're deciding on whether or not you're bringing him back in Leo Chenal. And you didn't allow development with Jaden Hicks or with Bassa or with several other guys in the areas on the downs where Nick Bolton doesn't give you the stuff he needs to give you, but he's still on the field for. That value in that contract was a problem before they ever gave it to him. He didn't get paid like Fred Warner exactly, thank God, but he got too damn close for what they're getting out of it. And again, I'm not here to hate on Nick. I think Nick's a good player, good guy. He's just limited. We knew that he was limited when he was in college. We knew it's never been a secret. So it's just there were roster decisions made. That's one of the roster decisions made. I think it's still fair to look at that contract through that lens and still have questions about that. There are also some other contracts. Trey Smith doesn't really factor into that equation for me, because what they released Jawaan Taylor today, which we're going to get into, I'm sure. But so that's more of that contract. That's your trade-off there. The Trent stuff is the roster building part that Garrett's talking about. And yeah, they have to right now, because they don't have Brian Cook is a free agent. Jalen Watson is a free agent. That's like a good chunk of the starting snaps of your secondary now, not on this roster when you trade Trent out of here. That is most of the leadership of that room. So you've got stuff to address, and now you've got to figure out which of those guys, because I think you have to probably bring one of them back, I would assume. Maybe you get crazy and you just pull it all over, but that's a risky option to do that way. So that becomes a conversation of, and I think what this means, the draft picks and stuff are important, but what it means for how they're going to approach free agency is the part that I think is going to be more interesting for me, because I think there's probably going to be one or two more restructures done on some guys that have existing deals. And I think they're going to have to be aggressive if they want to try to do this in another quick flip fashion like they usually try to do these in. Because the other option is you kind of patchwork it together to give them a chance to make the playoffs this year, and then make it a 2-year project.
Yeah,
and then you don't trade that next year's third for the move up, and you do take all of your bites at the apple with all of your picks, because you have to, if you're going to do this into a 2-year swing, you have to have as many shots as you can.
So I think I'm gonna jump in here, and because I don't, I have legitimate questions, concerns about Brett Veach his history as a drafter since that 2002 class. We've talked about this, and at the same time, what is considered successful in the NFL for a general manager is to hit on about 48% of their draft picks. So that means about 48% of the picks they make should be starters. Brett Veach is right around that, with the 22 class being an outlier and really kind of carrying his average. There have been some misses at some big positions, and also I think when we've talked about this before, the coaching staff and some of the young players not developing like you would want them to. I see it a little bit different here because I think the Chiefs have had or have more flexibility than what a lot of people thought, both in terms of coming in and being able to, redo some things cap wise with restructures, and even with the Trent McDuffie move. I think that it was more of an intentional choice than what some people are going to think, and that is, I would say, more rooted in the money piece. 30 million is a lot to pay for a cornerback. And if you look at the other teams that are doing that right now, the Colts, they traded, the Jets and the Colts, they took on the Sauce Gardner contract, right? 30 million plus a year. They don't have a franchise quarterback. You have to kind of look at what, and on top of that, you have Chris Jones, who's going to be a big hit. When we talk about the cap implications, a lot of times people think just the first year, right? Oh, we have this much money this year. Well, honestly, even if they extended Trent, his cap, the amount of the cap he was going to take up wasn't going to be a problem until next year, the year after, right? Once that extension kicks in. In fact, that first year, you usually lower the cap number because, you convert some things to a signing bonus. So really what that gives you the power to do in free agency versus what we've seen the Chiefs do, I think in the past couple of years when they've been a little more cash strapped, where they've done these shorter term deals, they can now do maybe a 3-year deal where the second year has some more of that money than the first year. And they can structure those cap hits a little bit differently. They can take some swings on some younger players. I think when we're talking about identity and guys, I will go ahead and go on record and say I think the Chiefs are probably going to be active in the safety market when it comes to free agency. We know that they like veterans. We know that they want, obviously I think bringing back Brian Cook is a legitimate option, but there are some other guys out there that they may look at as guys that they could bring in. And that's going to be part of it. It's going to be okay. If we, with this McDuffie move, does that allow us to get a safety and maybe an edge player who can come in and be a starter, be a rotational guy? The defensive tackle class isn't great free agency wise, but maybe that means you grab one or two of those guys on, some cheaper deals. Like that's what you're looking at, and being able to develop those players, not just for this coming year, but for 2 or 3 years down the road, and adding some players who can be part of a new Chiefs identity. We've said it. This roster is going to look much different week 1 next year. And so right now it's critical because the Chiefs have, you're going to go pay some guys. You want to find some guys who are going to be here. You want to find the Justin Reeds. You want to find, the Tyrann Matthews who are going to be here 2, 3, 4 years and really, help this team shape some of their identity. So I'm sure we'll get more into that about the what could be's and the who we wants and all that. But I think there is more flexibility here, and that this move, was made to, create flexibility. The other thing I'll say is don't be surprised if we don't hear about any restructures, because I don't anticipate the Chiefs restructuring. I think they'll be active. They'll get their priorities out of the way. But it's not uncommon for them to go, like the news to break that they've signed a guy, and then, oh, by the way, we restructured Trey Smith. I think that they kind of work deals out, and then they wait to officially restructure them if they need to, which, by the way, excellent strategy for a general manager. Because you are in free agency, and if you restructure everybody up front and then you don't get the guys you want, bro, now now you've just messed up your cap for next year. So, and years to come. So I think that's just keep that in mind if we're going into the first hours, early hours of free agency, and we're like, what's going on? How come they haven't restructured? It's I think that they'll do it as they need to free the money up to spend it.
Yeah. One more note I want to put on McDuffie before I know we're trying to get into free agency and what we're going to do with all these picks. But Tom mentioned the fact that obviously the Chiefs, it didn't seem like the Chiefs were ever going to pay Trent $30+ million a year. Like that is a pretty steep number. I do think there is the possibility that they could have paid a cornerback that number. And I don't want to, I almost didn't want to even mention this because it's like taken away from Trent because I love Trent and he is a phenomenal player. But there are still some limitations to his game, right? And I think we saw a little bit of that get exposed this season specifically because he didn't really have a whole lot of secondary help around him. I mean, Jalen Watson was still there, but I think the biggest thing was the fact that they were really trying to use him more as an outside number one guy for most of the year, whereas all of us, obviously, we know that he's more talented in the slot, right? I think he's a more versatile guy in the slot, in the nickel. You can kind of use in a more versatile package. But from Trent's side, obviously outside corners get paid more. That is kind of the big thing. And that's if he wants to, get in that Sauce Gardner type of money, you have to play outside. And I think there were just some things that were exposed of him this year that made the Chiefs probably question, like, is this a guy that we want to be our number one outside guy and pay him $30 million a year to then play him outside? I think, and there was a lot of reports too of like, Trent and his camp wanting to play outside as opposed to the slot. We talked about it last offseason when they signed Christian Fulton. It's like, oh, this is the perfect recipe to have, two outside guys in Fulton and Watson, and then Trent can play in the slot. And then come the season, and Christian Fulton couldn't sniff the field, and they were putting Trent as the number one guy following, lead number one receivers. And, there was just a couple times where it's like, I just don't know if he's, obviously the limitations to his game. Like we know he's a phenomenal player, but it's just, did he take that next step to be like the number one outside guy and pay him $30 million a year? Is it justified to do that? That's probably what some of the conversation went into it as well, if I had to guess.
So there was a conversation, if you're like me and you guys pay attention to Only Weird Games at all, our Nate Taylor of ESPN is on there. Seemed like it was discussed that Trent's camp wanted him to play outside until he got paid. So I guess for me, if you're going to pay him, and then it shouldn't matter where he plays because he got paid, and then you can play him where you want him, which is in the slot where he's the most dangerous player on defense.
Yeah, which is justified.
And even sometimes in that fashion.
I
get why they wanted him to play outside last year, but once you pay him, I don't think you have to play him outside. You can play him inside, and then it shouldn't matter to him because you got paid, bro. You got your deal. You got the money. So if you're going to pay him, I don't think you had to play him outside. I think you could still roll Christian Fulton and Noah Williams out there next year. Now that you've paid Trent, and Trent will go back inside and do what his thing is in there, where he's a weapon. So that would be my only thing, because that was mentioned. Like, I wouldn't bring that up just because, but Nate mentioned something along those lines.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it, and it's just like, I get it. I get that he wants to.
And he wanted to. Now you get paid though, but if you get paid, then you don't. Then I don't care where you play me. Play me wherever. Like, that's the deal for me. So.
But it makes even more sense, I guess, if it's a new team paying you and you can go in and just be like, yeah, I'm just going to be the chess piece, do whatever you want with me, as opposed to like maybe some preconceived notions of the previous coaching staff. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I'm excited to watch Trent in LA with the Rams.
He gets to go home.
That he gets to be at home. His family can visit. There's a clip that was circulating a couple days before of him at like in a cafeteria or something, talking to a bunch of students. They ask him like, what other team would you like to pay for? And it's like, the Rams, because his family's there, and that makes sense. He's a SoCal guy. So I'm also
shout out
glad
to Harold for pulling that up.
Yeah, and I'm also glad it's not the other Los Angeles team, the Chargers, because then that would have really been unfortunate. So at a certain point, like, I am happy, and it's like, he's on the NFC. The Chiefs do play the Rams this year, so that's going to be fun. But other than that, like, it's not something that's necessarily going to impact us unless both of us make it to the Super Bowl, which I think, I mean, the Rams right now are the current
That's why
favorites
they did this.
to win the Super Bowl. They're still trying to go all in on Matt Stafford. And it's two different team building philosophies, right? Like the Rams have always been the number one team. I mean, people tweeted out where like they've traded like 8 of their last 9 first round picks for different things.
Les Snead
like,
is the original F them picks.
yeah, so it's like two different strategies. Either someone who doesn't like the picks, or there's the Chiefs and Brett Veach who accept all of the picks and then typically make pretty good things with them. So on that note of the picks that we've acquired, now that we have 2 first round picks, the 9th overall pick and the 29th overall pick, and we have the 40th pick and we have the 74th pick. That's a lot of capital to potentially get some guys that can be instant day one contributors. That's something that we all kind of touched on. It's like, Trent is good, but he's not 3 to 4 players good. Like that is
we have 109 too, right?
Yep.
Sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. That range.
I mean,
so there's a lot of potential to get some solid contributors that can fill a lot of those holes that we talked about.
There's a lot of ammo. This draft becomes extremely important for Brett Veach. Like, It was already important, but now, much like people said with the Tyreek thing, now you've kind of backed yourself into a corner where you have to hit starters in this draft, and some of them are going to have to play right away. So they will always go out in free agency and make sure they can kind of, if we had to play today, could we play type of deal before they get to the draft, because that's also been their philosophy forever. So but I do think they're going to be more active in free agency, maybe on the earlier days of free agency, as opposed to the last few years where they've been more active on like that second wave, third wave type stuff. But they're going to go in with enough draft picks to be able to truly go BPA, because they've got 5 or 6 in the top 109 picks.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's pretty
so
good.
They've got some ammo. I'd be interested to see if he sits still. I know Brett likes to trade, but I'll be interested to see, because if I remember right, the year that he did the major overhaul after the Tyreek thing, he didn't really do a whole lot of trading up. He pretty much sat still on a lot of those and put together a really, really big, really nice draft class. So it'll be interesting to see the approach that they go with this year, and whether or not how much he uses the picks for ammo and how much he uses the picks to actually restock the cupboards on this roster, because they've got some holes to fill now, and especially in the leadership room on that defense.
Yeah, that is important. So, okay, let's get to the other piece of news that came out today, which is the Chiefs officially releasing Jawaan Taylor. That's another thing that we already kind of hinted on, but a move that a lot of us, I think, expected, with just the inflated cap number that Jawaan had. Really, his, there's a lot of criticism on his play and stuff like that. That is justifiable for sure, but the biggest thing was the fact that he saves us $20 million by cutting him, right? And we had a replacement essentially on the roster already, which was Jalen Moore. That was kind of one of the thoughts, is like you sign Jalen Moore for a 2-year deal and he can potentially be your right tackle in 2026. So this was kind of this one was kind of a writing on the wall situation. I know we here at the Kingdom Says have had very harsh criticism of some of Jawan's things. Besides Kyle, obviously, Kyle has been a defender of Jawaan, and to be fair, Jawaan is a fine player. He really is a good tackle. Just what I said immediately upon a couple of days ago when we heard of the potential release is just the fact that the game-breaking penalties made it not worth it anymore, and I said that many times throughout this last season when I came on here and talked about it. Just the very big back-breaking, drive-killing penalties, whether it was the illegal formation penalty that was highlighted,
which is most of it,
or like some false starts, or it was mostly the illegal formations thing. But overall, just the penalty issue is always a big thing for him. So it's an expected move, and we can kind of see it coming. But still, shout out to Jawaan. He still had some good play for us. came in and definitely was a constant on that side of the line. You know, that's a big thing that you can always count on him for is being a you know, you always know what you're going to get when you had Jawaan out there. And most, you know, there was a lot of games that we didn't even have to say his name, you know, so that's a good thing for offensive linemen in that case. But and you know, we reported his you know, we teased his release a couple of days ago, hoping that a team might want to maybe trade for him. They didn't want to trade for him, which it's just about it's a
A
big cap
little
hit this year.
surprising, but yeah, the
Yeah,
cap.
big cap hit, 20 million or whatever for this year. So I can understand a team just wanting to probably start fresh, and he's definitely going to get another big contract somewhere because he's still one of the top tackles that are out there on the market. But for the Chiefs, you got Jalen Moore, you have Esa Pole, who are your two potential right tackle options still, and whatever you might add on the draft as well. You know, which I don't think the Chiefs are drafting anyone at 9 at tackle like some people are saying. But you know, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that they spend a day 2 or a day 3, you know, a high day 3 pick on offensive line if the opportunity is there. You know, if the opportunity is there. So, what are you guys thought, Randy? What was your thought on releasing Jawaan?
So I've been one of his biggest critics. While I totally understand Jawaan was a good tackle, I would put him in the good to above average. But my biggest criticisms of Jawaan were just like you know, as an O-line coach, the things that he refused to fix or change in his game to alleviate the headaches he caused. Like not being able to line up correctly, fix your stance, play with a better base, you know, time your punches, have, you know, there was just so many things that he just like would not fix in his game that would allow him to, you know, not have to slide back so far or jump the snap so much because he had to cheat the system in order to be effective to get to the spots on time. That was my biggest criticisms of him, is just like not being coachable or willing to fix the mistakes or the shortcomings in his game to make him a better player. Like, could he pass block? Yeah, he was an adequate pass blocker, okay in the run game. Like he was an okay to above average tackle. But the headaches and the penalties were just, and his inflated cap hit was just, the writing's been on the wall for a while. And is Jalen Moore or Pole going to be able to, you know, step in and fill those shoes adequately? I would hope so. They both have shown flashes and ability in the past, but um, I think the right tackle position will be okay between those two guys. Um, and the one thing that both of those players bring that I don't think Jawaan had was just, like, I've said it tons of times, like in my own line, guys, like I want to see some tenacity. Like I want to see a guy who wants to put someone in the dirt, and you know, Pole has that in spades, and Jawaan shows that, or Taylor shows that more than Jawaan. So it's, I don't know, I think we'll be okay there. But thank you, Jawaan, for your service. Greener pasture somewhere else. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so you know, I think we'll be okay. Tom, I don't know if you feel like we'll be okay at right tackle. You know, right tackle is always one of those positions. Obviously, when you talk about importance, I guess you could maybe say it's one of the least important positions on the line. Not like there's any,
I don't.
every line position is important, you know, but
Yeah,
the non-blindside protector historically has always been, you know, the less maybe prioritized.
Mhm. Yeah, historically, I would say that's true. I think in recent years that has changed a lot because I think teams are more willing to flip rushers around and put more pressure on that side. Because a lot of times, what that means is your quarterback is then bailing and running, you know, towards the strong side, towards the defensive end that is your premier guy. So, you know, I think that those have balanced out a little bit. I don't know if the unconscious, like, kind of like you said, that's kind of the traditional thought. But I think you paid Jalen Moore decent money. I really, you have to feel decent about what you see out of Pole. You know, I think you're okay with it, you can kick the tires in free agency if somebody falls in the draft. Like we've gone into the season with worse plans at left tackle when we were running out Wanya Morris and the ghost of whoever else. But I think that it's a position that if they can upgrade, they will, but it won't be the top of their board because they've at least got some bodies and they've got some got a pulse there. So yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how they adjust, if they really make any big adjustments for right tackle. But I think overall the Chiefs' offensive line is the least priority right now. They've done a pretty good job the past couple of years of fortifying that. So it's just every other position basically. It's just basically every other position on the roster, and that's not even an exaggeration. It's like every position. So let's talk about what are we gonna do with these Trent McDuffie picks, boys? What are we gonna do? We have another first round pick, obviously. Theoretically, that's the range that we're used to picking at, right? As the Chiefs in that very late round pick, so late first round pick. So there's a lot of guys that are really intriguing, that were kind of late round one guys, fringe round two guys that will be available at that spot. Contrasting that with having the 9th overall pick, what should be the strategy as Kyle rejoins us? Welcome back, Kyle. How you doing today? What should be the strategy, I guess, for the Chiefs with these first couple picks? Should we, Randy mentioned the potential trade up scenario where you could maybe trade up from 9, throw that day 3 pick or that 3rd round pick next year, maybe a 4th round pick.
That was my idea. Giving it to Randy.
Okay, you're right. Actually, you're probably right about that, Tom. I think Randy just said he didn't like the idea, which is why I thought of Randy first. But what do you think, Tom? I guess Tom, what do you think then of the potential trade up? Is it worth it? Would it be something that we would even feasibly do, or should we really just try to hang on to some picks?
Jawaan Taylor will go down as underrated when this is all looked back at in the future.
Facts,
That's all I have to say.
You're right,
Yeah.
Kyle. You're right. Shout out.
So here's what I think the blueprint is for Brett Veach, and it's going to be what he's done historically, which is free agency. He's going to go out and get players at the positions of needs, and he's going to make sure that he is good enough at every position that he can do what he wants to go get his guys. If you want my opinion, and I don't think this is likely because Brett Veach and I think we have similar thought processes, but he makes decisions that I wouldn't, for better and worse. I think if there is a guy, and I think there is a guy, I don't know, I'm not saying I know who it is. For me, I know who I would be moving up for. But I think if there's a guy at the top, right, the Chiefs don't pick in this, in the top 10, top 5 very often. You are not going to have a chance to get what you consider a blue chip prospect very often. And I think Brett Veach is ballsy enough to strike. We're talking about the importance of, locker room leadership and that type of thing. This is a guy who you're going to have control over for 5 years. This is a guy that you're probably going to want to look at and go, regardless of his position, I know he's going to come in and be a hit. There are a handful of those guys in this class. Brett Veach talked about him before the combine. Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs. And some people would have put some other names in there, but those are like my 4 that I'm like, any one of those 4 players would be pretty awesome. I think there's a lot of smoke right now, especially with Jeremiah Love and these teams up at the high. I think it's a terrible kept secret that the Chiefs want Jeremiah Love. I think that it's one of those things that everyone's went, yeah, we don't want that to happen, and 2, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. The Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love. The Titans with Robert Saleh, defensive head coach, are going to pass on David Bailey or Arvell Reed,
Christian McCaffrey, for a couple
while
years.
They have Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears on the roster. Yeah, I'm sure. Then that's the Cardinals. Oh, the Cardinals are going to take a running back. The Cardinals, who I couldn't tell you who is even on their team.
They don't even have a quarterback right now. So
yeah, they need a quarterback. They need a running back. They need a wide receiver. They need the whole dang kit and caboodle. That just doesn't feel like good team building to me. The Giants, I could see the Giants doing it because John Harbaugh's crazy. Um, but they have Cam Scatterbo and Scatterbo, and he's going to hopefully come back because he was a fun player. Cleveland, I think Cleveland wants out of 6. I would say 4 and 6 are the 2 spots where I would watch for the Chiefs to maybe make that move. But I think Cleveland especially wants out of 6. We know that they don't want a running back. We know that Washington and New Orleans could be that. But I feel like there's so much smoke about it just because it's a position that, like, there's other positions that I think these teams are valuing: offensive line, defensive line. I think somebody's going to take Sonny Styles in there, and they probably don't want people to know who that is because he's a hot name right now. He's a guy who blew away at the interviews at the combine. So I'm not saying the Chiefs should make that move. I think though that if you have this swing and you're in range of a blue chip prospect, something that you really believe in, you got to strongly consider it. Because again, we're talking 5 years of control, good position to get that. So I don't think that they will trade both their first round picks. I expect them to make 2 picks in the first round. I think that's pretty. I think they've seen how effective that is with George and Trent. Having that model there. So. It's also possible they could use some of that capital to move up from 29. So it kind of depends on how the board plays out. I am kind of rooting for, hey, let's go find another blue chip player. Let's add a blue chip to this roster, and then let's, do what we can down the rest of the board to fill those needs. And yes, obviously I'm talking a lot about Jeremiah Love. I understand people, David Bailey, Arvell Reese, all that stuff. We've had the conversation. You won't convince me that drafting the best player in this class, who's not named Caleb Downs or Arvell Reese, is a bad idea. I just, especially over some of the other guys who have legitimate flags. So we won't get into all that, but I think that free agency is going to be the key piece. They're not going to go into this draft with like a glaring hole that everybody knows, like, oh yeah, the Chiefs are going to go X, Y, or Z. They're going to have starting caliber players, across the board. They have to fill this roster out.
Yeah. It's very valid. Kyle, I know you're the number one Jeremiah Love guy around. What were your thoughts on trading up even for him? I mean, there's one thing of having him fall to 9, right? But then trading up potentially to get him, is that still, you're still all in on it?
I've said, I'm not shy. I've said he's the best player in this draft. Now, he does not play the most premium position in football. I understand that. Now, if this was 20 years ago when we were having this conversation, he'd be going 1, not Fernando Mendoza, and this wouldn't even be a discussion. So It's funny to watch the evolution and the cyclical nature of football. I do think we're moving back towards the running game, but look, man, he's a special player. I don't know. The thing for me with the teams in front, you can want to take a running back, but a lot of these teams have even more holes than the Chiefs, and we feel like we've got a bunch of holes, and there are a lot of these teams that need a lot of things, a lot more than they need a running back. And there are some position groups that are deeper than others in this class, edge being one of the groups that's deeper than a lot of the others in this class. Wide receiver, a deeper group than the others in this class. So it's like Tom said, when you have the chance to put a certified dude on your roster that you have 5 years of control over, do I want to trade up for him? No, I don't want to. Do I think if they get intel that they have to and he is their guy that they will? Yes, because that's what they do. But I also think that, like, look, man, we've had so many conversations about this running game for the last, God, how many years? I mean, what, Darrell Williams was the last one where we were all like, no, we're good.
Maybe Damian Williams.
Yeah, Darrell Williams was fine too for like 10 games or whatever. But like Damian Williams was the last one where you were like, yeah, no, we good. We're good with what
rookie season, first 2 years
Pacheco
was pretty good.
Rookie Clyde before he got hurt, like that was it. And then everything else has been just this. It's fight. It's been, we got to manufacture and we got to do all this creative. You can't just line up and run the ball. And even though Pacheco was okay his rookie year, the vision's been a conversation forever. But you also haven't had a dynamic player in a while at the running back position. He's a 3-down back. He's a 3-down player. He can pass block. He's not perfect at it, but he's way ahead of 99% of college backs that you see come out with the pass protection. He has no problem being physical. He runs routes. I mean, they had him running wide receiver routes at the combine after the running back drills were done. Him and Jadarian Price, his teammate. But there's a huge drop off in that position that there isn't in others. I could also see them taking a defensive lineman at 9.
Yeah.
But I struggle with the guy who I think is the best player in the draft being there at, okay, say it is 6 with Cleveland, and they are looking for picks next year, and you can use that third. It's tough for me to say no to that if that's what it's going to take. And because he adds a dynamic to the offense that you have not had. And the other teams in front, some of them don't have offensive lines that are going to make having a running back like him effective, because we saw it with Genty. He's great, but if they can't block you and me, it doesn't matter how good he is if he's getting hit before he even gets the ball.
Right.
So
much better scenario to come in the Chiefs with a really good offensive line, and
he was smart enough to tell people
set up to really dominate the run game, and just lacking a running back to do it. I think, Randy, I want to get your thoughts, and let me know if you agree with this. Now, I feel like there's two different philosophies, right? When you look at this pick 9, there's one half of the consensus that wants to go defense and wants to stop people scoring on us and wants to get to the passer, because that was there was two very bad glaring things that we had to watch last year. We had to watch an abysmal run game and we had to watch an abysmal pass rush game, right? So there's two philosophies. You either want to improve the defense and improve the pass rush so that the offense doesn't have to necessarily score 20, 25, 30 points a game to win the game because the defense is so good. And then there's the other side of the coin that really, really wants to go back to 2018 and just put up 40, 50 points on everybody. Who cares if the defense is good, because Patrick Mahomes and a good running game and good weapons and a good concept around him, it'll just blow the league up. And it doesn't even matter how the defense is. You can put Bob Sutton back there; it don't matter because we have a phenomenal offense, right?
Please don't do that.
So there's two philosophies, Randy. What camp would you say that you're kind of in?
That's a little bit of a loaded question, because we have, how many times have we sat here on this podcast and talked about our complete lack of ability to run the game or run the ball in key situations, and either put games away or just have some kind of explosive play, something that matters out of that position. It's been a while, and we've kind of, in the last couple of years, like, the defense has really been kind of shouldering some of the weight with the inept ability of our lack of explosive plays with the offense and whatnot. But now our defense is kind of taking a hit as well. So, like, we're sitting here looking at number 9, and you're like, well, we can't miss. And I think sitting at 9, like, I don't think there's an opportunity to miss on a player that's going to be there. I love Jeremiah Love. Fantastic player. I'm with Kyle. I think he's probably the overall best player in this draft. Andy Reid traditionally has not used the running back as a focal point, much to my chagrin, because I'm, being an O-line coach and a running back coach in the past, like, that's my jam. Like, run the ball. And I've been screaming that at my TV for 6 years now. I don't want to move up. I could see it happening, because I do think there's a legit chance that, if Love, say, gets past Arizona, Washington and the Saints are two very, very real scenarios to where that's where he goes. Like Kyle mentioned too, those teams also have a whole holes to fill as well. But if we sit pat at 9, is Love there? Maybe. Is Bain there? Maybe. Tyson, Downs. You never know.
Timeout. Did you say Tyson?
I'm just throwing names that there are some good players that are going
Randy,
to be
the receiver you want to talk about is Lemon, Randy. Just remember.
And we've had this conversation too. Like right now, I'm not on a Lemon train.
I know,
like,
but you got to be.
I need to take.
I'm not necessarily on the Lemon train either, but I'm sure as hell not on the Tyson.
Start drinking the lemonade.
I would take Tate over Tyson and Lemon. That's where I stand with wide receivers. But there's going to be a blue chip, really good football player at 9 if we stand pat. That's going to be able to fill a hole that we have. Period. I think 29 is the kicker and the wild card to where we really address the defensive line needs with 29 and 40. Like that's a sweet spot for defensive tackles and that borderline back end tier 1 front of tier 2 edge players. Whether that's Banks or Lee Hunter or Mesidor or Zion Young, those are guys that we can target at 29 and 40 that legit can come in and play right off the bat. So 9 to me in my heart is still BPA. Take a dude, whichever guy falls to you, stand pat. I mean, unless you are absolutely 100% in love, head over heels, must have Jeremiah Love, you sit at 9 and you take the best player. 29 and 40 where it gets interesting. I would like to still have both of those picks to fill that interior of the defensive line, especially because, like we said, Chris Jones is getting older. His contract's going to have to get restructured, which means more money pushed to the back end, which means he's probably not going to be here in 3 years. And our interior defensive line depth, there's no such thing. There is none. There's nobody. There's nobody.
Whoa.
And I don't. Before anyone brings up Omar Norman Lott, let
the kid breathe. They tried to kill him last year.
I was not on that train with the draft pick. Period. I don't think he's the guy at all.
They also tried to kill him. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Still, there's only 2 people, right? You have Chris Jones and ONL, and that's it for defensive tackle. So either way, you don't need Mo. You don't need Mo.
We need to get at least 2 interior defensive linemen in this draft. And I think 29.
I do think they have to take both picks in the first round.
Absolutely. You have to keep both of them. So that's why I don't want to move up. I want to stay at 9, take the best player. 29, I think you take the best interior defensive lineman or the top edge player that's left. And with 40, attack the other's position.
Yeah. No,
I think, am I right in thinking, because when I look at this draft class, like I said earlier, and you all three probably have looked at it more than me this year, but there are a lot of edge players and a lot of wide receivers that are in those groupings. Because there's only a lot of guys are saying between 10 and 12 first round grade prospects in this draft class. That's the number I keep hearing. I think Matt Miller said he had 11. I've heard 10 and 12. It's been in that ballpark. So I agree with Randy on the 9 is the bulletproof kind of. You can't really miss. You really shouldn't be able to miss on wherever you land.
Unless you draft Kendrick Paul.
But that.
Other than that,
it's Keldrick Falk for
That's
one.
What I said probably. I don't know. Weird.
You said Kendrick.
Well, it should be Kendrick. Okay, what are we doing? All right, what are we talking
All right.
about?
But like I said, am I right in thinking that probably the 2 deeper spots in this draft seem to be the edge and the wide receiver, especially in that upper portion of the talent pool, and that also the other portion of this draft, it seems like once you get to just outside that 3rd round, that it kind of tails off. This doesn't seem to be a very deep draft on the overall whole. So the 5th, 6th, and 7th may not be as important this year. That may be where you see them use some of that 5th and 6th stuff that they got from the Rams deal to do things at 29 or 40 or 74 or whatever it is, where they do
Smaller
slide
trade-offs.
up to get a guy they're committed to that they really want. So
Let's talk about, because we're talking about the quality of the draft class.
And how it's viewed, because that's what I keep hearing from all the draft people that I listen to that I trust, other than you two, which I have not had a chance to talk to about it. So that's why I brought this up.
Yeah, you two, me and Randy. Yeah.
You three technically, but
Oh,
the two of you specifically that run the
I thought
recon
you were
page.
talking about me and you, Randy. I don't know about Tom, but I thought it was you two. You know.
I don't
Oh,
really-
shut up!
I kind of hate this recent trend of talking heads being like, well, I only have 10 or 12 or 14 or 15 first round grades in this draft. Do you know how many first round players are in this draft class this year?
32.
Same as every year.
32, Tom.
Did that one year that the Patriots lost their first round pick.
I feel like it's just an exercise in being pretentious when people do it that way. Because at the end of the day, like you have your 32, your top 32 players, your top 50 players. Like, you know, those are the guys who are going to go in those spots. I understand that they may not be, you know, historically compared apples to oranges, whatever. But you know, that's why I look at it as we talk about blue chip, yellow, kind of like a good starter type of
Yellow
like.
chip.
When we talk about it that way, where you know a blue chip, I would define as somebody who has high upside, all pro upside, minimal risk, and projects well as a starter.
Okay.
I think there's 4 guys and I've already talked about them. When we get into the red chips, I think you get into the Carnell Tates, the David Baileys. I'd put Fernando Mendoza in that. Not that we're looking at quarterbacks. I think I would put Ruben Bain in that category.
Same chip as David Bailey.
Do what?
Same chip as David Bailey. I hate that.
Same bucket.
I don't want to eat those chips.
I don't know what to tell you. That's just
What kind of chips are these, anyways? You said red chip, yellow chip. Are we talking like Lay's, Ruffles? Like, is there a specific? Sorry, bad joke.
Speaking of Mackay Lemon, I don't. I'm not on the lemon train, but I did go to a lemon party once in the early 2000s, and there were a lot of holes that were filled. Anyway,
that is
Kyle knows the website. He's been there.
That is a sentence that's been said on this pod. That is a sentence.
He's been to the lemon party.
Wow.
Anyway, I think this class is okay. This is one of the most stupid deep tight end classes like ever. It is ridiculous. There's probably half a dozen starters at tight end, and then probably another half dozen guys who are going to be really solid tight end twos in this class. It's a strong safety class. Starting with Caleb Downs, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Oh goodness gracious!
Dylan Thieneman.
Yeah, Thieneman.
Thieneman. Wow.
Thieneman.
Down the list, there's a couple. There's some more guys who can play. It's a good linebacker class. If they're looking at linebackers, right? And this might be, let me put this out there. What if, and I don't think this is likely, but it's possible because you talk about positional value. You go through free agency, they get their starters. I mean, like, if Sonny Styles is there at 9, you grab him, and that means you can move on from Nick Bolton next year. Maybe trade Nick Bolton for something. I mean, like, those are the type of moves that we want to look at. So I think.
Do you want my answer? Yes.
When we talk about 9,
I mean, it obviously depends on the board, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's
hard because we want, like, again, if you want a blue chip, that top tier, like, hey, I am confident this is going to be a hit. You got four bites of the apple there, in my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with a top tier red chip, player. That's the, those are still the kind of caliber players that we don't normally get a chance at, and so that's still good. I think the conversation is: do we sit here and take that, or do we really have a guy that we know is going to be part of our new identity going forward for the next 5 years, or longer? And if so, I think it's worth it to go get him. Whether that's Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love or Caleb Downs or whoever it is, if one of those, Garrett, you do not trigger me.
What are you talking about, Tom? How are you not all in on Ruben Bain, brother? I don't know how you're out on Ruben Bain, saying he ain't going to go 20,
How many
29.
players in the NFL in the last 10 years with less than 31-inch arms?
Turn on the
He
tape.
he would hold on. He would
Turn
be
on
he would be the generational outlier because no one's done it.
Have
We
you watched
understand
the
that,
tape?
but he would be the generational outlier.
He would, but have y'all watched the tape of these other short arm guys? They don't look anywhere close to the same stratosphere as Ruben Bain. All right, they don't even look in the same stratosphere. Also,
I will say this: the kid looks polished. He has a plan.
The arm length debate then sparked another debate online about Ruben Bain about arm span versus wingspan. All right, arm length versus wingspan, because Ruben Bain's wingspan now ain't that bad. His arm length might be a little but his wingspan really ain't that bad, Tom. I'm telling you, his wingspan ain't that bad.
Well, and then there's
Also, Tom, hold on. Let me
the
get.
discrepancy in arm length anyway.
That's also true, Tom. You can't trust
it's
these measurements.
31, and if it's the Senior Bowl, it's over 32. So
you can't trust the fake news measurements, Tom.
I will be curious. I will be curious to see the pro day measurements, because this would be the second year in a row with the combine of this being basically consistently shorter across the board. And that was a conversation
those guys in Indy have, they might have an
I don't know
against short arm guys,
It's
also
an interesting thing.
Tom, just to even further harp on the Bain, if you watch Ruben Bain's film, a lot of the techniques and pass rush things that he does and everything that he does makes up for his short arm length. He does things that you do because you have short arms. That's he knows how to work in his body and still dominates. So, Tom, you need to get back on the Ruben Bain train, bro. I don't know what happened the past couple weeks that made you derail off the Bain train. I don't like it. All right.
It's not that I dislike Ruben Bain.
It seems like you hate Ruben Bain.
Is it because Seth said that the Jamal Charles comparisons were not out of the ordinary or out of this world for Jeremiah Love? Did that play a role?
This is the conversation, okay? And this is what kind of tweaks. I have a tick over this because I haven't had a chance to articulate this the way that I've wanted to, and it's finally here. It is.
Okay.
I understand if you're telling me that you don't value a running back enough to take them in the top 10, or if you feel like that's not an important position. That's okay. You know what? That's a valid argument. I can respect your argument. But then don't come back and tell me that instead of that, because of positional value, you should then instead take a player. Garrett couldn't handle the truth. He had to leave.
Oh no!
A player with
we're driving without a captain. The ship has no driver.
As soon as Tom started slandering Ruben Bain, my internet cut out.
Oh no!
I knew you couldn't handle the truth.
We were driving with no pilot.
Even my internet company's like, you don't got to hear this mumbo jumbo. You don't even worry about it.
Don't come back to me and tell me that you should instead take a guy who has the potential. Like, if you take Ruben Bain and he overcomes the outlier, you look like a genius. But if you take Ruben Bain and that short arm becomes an issue and he becomes just a mid-level player, guess what? You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like that's what it comes down to. And it's
happy to
not
introduce myself as Mr. Genius. That is me.
It's not that I don't like Bain. It's that I don't like the risk of Bain for that selection. compared to the value of a player who could hit. So I would not be upset if the Chiefs sit at 9 and the board falls, kind of how I expect. I think there's a chance that Ruben Bain is the best option.
Ain't no way Bane's even making it to 9, unfortunately. So
I would stop shaving my head. I would let it grow out. You guys would watch as the sides kind of got puffy, and I started to look a little bit like Bob Ross and the bald spot. About 3 months from
you
now,
would look like Bob Ross.
and then I would pull it
Tom,
out
did
of
you
my
see
hair.
Bob Ross?
I would pull the hair out of my head, just to make the point that if they traded up for Ruben Bain, I would struggle with that logic. If they took Ruben Bain over Jeremiah Love, I would struggle with the logic.
Tom, I feel like you might need a little more of the beard transplanted to the head to get to Bob Ross level, but I understand the concept.
Listen, my hair grows. See, if you look closely, I haven't
Tom,
shaved.
Bob Ross had like a full afro. Like, what are you talking?
He did say with a bald spot.
Maybe not Bob Ross. Maybe like a chia pet. Maybe that's a better.
Maybe a chia.
Maybe more like Richard Simmons.
Maybe Richard Simmons is the better option.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, was that Gene Simmons? No, Richard Simmons was the young guy.
No,
Right?
Gene Simmons is Kiss. Jesus Christ.
I can do both.
What is happening?
My time's pretty long.
Yeah. No, I can see it, Tom. Actually, I could see it. Yeah,
See,
actually,
man, like
very similar.
I wouldn't move up for Bane. I wouldn't move up for Bane, but if
I
Bane's
would.
there at 9, I'm okay with Bane.
To me, the only person you move up for is Bane. In my opinion, that's the only guy you trade up
I would-
for. If you're gonna trade up, that's the only guy that you trade up.
When's the draft?
Still a month and a change away. 2 months almost, basically.
You know what I
away.
just realized though
God.
too, the other day is like
Heaven.
I'm not even going to be able to watch the draft this year, so I won't be available at all. Like
Hell.
my wife and I were going on a cruise, and I will be in the ocean, and I will not be able to watch the draft this year.
I'm just going to text you. They took David Bailey over and over again.
Yeah, I'm gonna punch you in the face when I get back.
Hey, you know, all you gotta do, Randy, is just.
We're not going to have to worry about that.
Tom.
We're not going to have to worry about that because the Jets went ahead and traded away Jermaine Johnson, and the Jets are going to do what the Jets do, and they're going to take Bailey second overall.
I mean, that is the hope.
We're not going to have to worry about it.
That they don't take Bane and they take Bailey instead. Yeah. You
Um,
know, Randy, all you have to do is follow at Kingdom Says Pod. You'll get all the live up to date updates of who we pick on every single round. You know, we're gonna
I'll
be
be
playing live.
on a boat in the Mediterranean, completely off
Don't
schedule.
even worry about it. Get the Starlink out, get the hot spots, and then you don't even got just go over to at Kingdom Says Pod. That's all you need, and then we're gonna tell
You
you.
got that cruise Wi-Fi. It comes with the tickets, doesn't it? You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll try to figure it out, but yeah, I will not be available to.
You get you a Starlink. That's what you need,
have to
Randy.
wait till I get back.
So
It
we have about a month. We have about a month till mock warfare.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and start reminding people about that now, since we're gonna do nothing but talk about draft picks and free agency for the next 2 months.
I'm going to take Ruben Bain just so Garrett can't.
Hey, that'd be a good decision for you, Tom. That'd be a winning mock draft warfare decision if you did that. So
if you guys aren't familiar, mock draft warfare is something we do every year. It's an exercise that kind of forces you to draft in certain fashions when it comes to position addressing throughout the first several rounds of the draft. We're going to have more picks this year than we normally have based on the current picks we have. We usually do, I think, this first 4 rounds, and I think we've got like 5 or 6 picks in the first 4 rounds this year. So we're going to have a lot of guys that we end up picking. There's different rules. We'll also see about having some guests join us. We usually have at least 1 or 2, and we'll do that kind of activity here in about a month. But that will be an interesting exercise based on just how much volume that there is in this draft for the Chiefs to now use, and then how everybody kind of views addressing that as we do that exercise. So
yeah, you know, free agency is going to impact a lot. You know, and we could be back here in a month from now talking about completely different positions because the Chiefs went out and signed, you know, Kenneth Walker and whatever other top tier edge rushers and defensive tackles and made a trade for a guy maybe, or like, so, you know, who knows, that free agency and all that will really impact what the final outlook it is for what the Chiefs should really be targeting. But we're gonna still come out here and talk about it every leg of the way. Every leg of the way, we're gonna be here with you guys, and it should be a good time. So that's all we've got for you tonight. We an hour and a half on this one. Appreciate you all for tuning in and rocking with us for this long. Obviously, a lot of really exciting stuff to talk about. So that's why a little bit longer episode. That'll happen sometimes, but we'll be back next week to talk more combine reactions, pro days. I'm sure we'll start starting up here pretty soon now. And then obviously, like we said, free agency starts next Monday. So
tampering period, I think, does.
Right. So the unofficial,
So yes,
the
essentially.
unofficial start, which is always so silly, Oh yeah, the tampering starts 2 days before, but then the actual free agency starts.
But it actually started in Indianapolis at the combine.
Yeah.
But
What a coincidence that all these teams announce big multi-year deals the 1 minute after free agency opens. Well, that's real quick. Yeah.
So March 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern is the legal tampering period begins. And the new league year starts March 11th at 4 Eastern, 3 Central. So
that's going to be the next big domino to see what the Chiefs end up doing. If we re-sign anyone, re-sign some familiar faces, sign some new faces, it's going to be a whole thing. We're going to be there. You're going to be there. We appreciate you all for rocking with us at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, X, Instagram. And check us out wherever you get your podcasts at, Spotify, Apple Music. Check us out on YouTube, especially. Check us out on YouTube. You can see our beautiful faces and some of our reactions to the things that Tom says. You can see our visible reactions to them, and
See my tongue.
you can maybe react along with us. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following along. We will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.